All right, welcome everybody to the podcast. Today we've got a great guest, my man Hijack from 808
Yes,
Breakers,
yes.
Hawaii. Super excited to have you here. Thanks for coming on.
Man, thank you for having me on. Blessed to be a part of the experience.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, so for why don't we get started? And for anyone who doesn't know who you are, might not know who you are, do you mind just giving a little bit of background on that and how you got into dance, how you got into hip hop, whatever?
Absolutely. My name is Jack Rabanal. I was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii. Currently 28 years old, just turned 28, and started started breaking when I was in eighth grade. Before then, I met some poppers, and my older brother had actually taught me how to do some stuff when I was in elementary school, and just been inspired from the whole movement that he was doing. And later in eighth grade, so from third grade on, all the way up until eighth grade, met b boys, and that just changed. That took off for me. That changed my whole perspective on movement and dancing in general. I've always seen like videos like Beat Street and Breakin', and we used to own the Michael Jackson Moonwalkers VHS, and we used to just play it and rewind it and play it and rewind it and copy his stuff. And it was just fascinating to see. The music too was just life changing. So
Mhm.
from then on, just started breaking from 2008, the summer of, all the way until now, current day.
Right, right. Um, Yeah, when you were starting out, who you mentioned, yeah, like a little bit of Michael Jackson here, and
Hmm.
your brother and some other random people, but like who
Yeah.
were some of the main people that when you were coming up were influencing your thoughts and how you approach this dance?
For popping, when I first started, it was just my older brother and some of the local kids on the street that really influenced that movement. But more towards eighth grade and on, I started connecting. I mean, it was just the kids that I met who were known as Just for Fun crew, JFF crew.
It's a good
They
name.
they taught me, yeah, yeah, just the local kids. And I mean, I'm still friends with these guys. Those guys are my day ones until then. And they taught me some stuff. We were just all high school friends. And then later on, as time went on, more towards like 10th grade, this is like 20, I want to say 2010, I started to meet other b-boys, within the community that would help put me on, such as LT, b-boy LT from Lions of Zion crew. He lives out here in Hawaii, and he really put me onto some stuff. I had mentors, of course, like Ark, b-boy Ark, as well as b-boy Layton Pogo, who was in our crew. It was a lot of just local kids within the community that we looked up to, that really helped influence. Even if it wasn't any proper structure on how to do this and that, it was just being able to practice with them was a learning process, and from the beginning. So
Hmm. So when you were starting out, uh, I mean, I talked to Ark a little bit about this,
mhm.
but yeah, it's just interesting to get your perspective on things. But what was the kind of Hawaii scene like when you were starting out?
It was pretty. It was, I feel like, at its peak when I first started out. This was around the same time that it was the B Boy City where Milky versus Little Demon was happening. So it was pretty big. Excuse me. Um, it was around that time when I was starting to come out, and there was huge jams. A lot of people within the community would come out, and a lot of crews would be representing, and it was just really a fruitful time of breaking within the communities here. I remember there was also another event where like Rivers crew came out, as well as Full Force crew. They all came out and battled some of the local crews out here, and it was happening. And then a little bit later after that, we hit a dry season where everybody just stopped, or a lot of people stopped. I guess it was in the transition of people growing up and having families and so on and so forth. But we went through a phase where there was not much people really doing it. And I strongly believe that in times like that, of course, everybody goes through their own situations, but in times like that, like the ones that really, really love it will find ways to keep it going, and elongate that journey. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've noticed that with a lot of different places too. That these things kind of come in waves almost, and like you
yeah,
said, a lot of people get real life happens, and you
yeah,
can't
yeah,
always do the things that you want to do, even though you might still want to do them. But yeah, like you said, I
yeah.
think the people that are really passionate about it. Not to say that
Hmm.
people who stop don't still love and enjoy
Love
the
it.
dance, but there's some people that are just really, really, uh, really passionate and
Obsessed.
dedicated and obsessed. Right? They just can't let
Yeah.
it go, even though they maybe should have or something like that. Right? Right?
Yeah.
But it's like a curse and a blessing, right?
True. So true.
Hmm.
You know, it was. I was thinking like it was like that. Like I feel like within our community, this dry season, let's call it, happened for a long time. Actually, I mean, we went through a phase where there was not much people, and then there was some people, and then it stayed at some people. And when I say some people, I mean like under 30
Wow.
people within the community breaking. And I moved to the Bay Area with ARC around 2014 up until 2016. And when I moved back to Hawaii, still the same, you know, still some people doing it, not too much, maybe 30 people. And I remember just wanting to, you know, if it wasn't going to be, if it was going to be hard to get people to come out to practice, then we should start focusing on the next generation of, you know, people that will carry it on. And that's when we started teaching. That's
Hmm.
when we started giving back to the kids. And, you know, it took a while. I started working in like after school programs, teaching. That's what I did when I was out in the Bay. Art put me onto this after school program, teaching breaking, working with the kids. Found joy and value in myself from doing that. You know, just exchanging. Nothing more better than building with a kid who is ready for it. You know, who's
Hmm.
ready mentally and wants to progress. You know, it's such a beautiful thing, and I was blessed to find that back home. You know, it took a while working different after school programs, trying to find the right uh, niche of kids, and finally got it. And man, it's just it's beautiful. You know, because with kids comes family, with family comes community, and it's such a joy. You know, a lot of people who come to Hawaii are so there's nothing but good words when they say like, oh, you know, it's such a positive kind of energy that they feel when you go to a jam and you see grandmas and grandpas attending the event and yelling, screaming, you know, for crazy things that they see and stuff. And it's it's a beautiful thing that we got right now because it's in this transition now where it's coming back to its peak. You know,
Right. Yeah.
circles, cycles.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But like you said, it takes people putting in the effort to help build these things. You
Yep.
gotta. Some people have to want to do it. I don't know if things will
Yeah.
naturally just. Oh, hang on. I don't know if things will naturally just happen like on their own with nothing, no one
Hmm.
doing anything.
True.
Some people have got to take the steps, right? But you mentioned community there, and it's a really big
Hmm.
thing within just like breaking and hip hop and all of that. But can you talk a little bit more about just like the Hawaii community and the vibe?
Yeah. So we're still pretty small, building up. I want to say we have maybe about 35 to 30 consistent people that come out to training. It's it's a beautiful scene. A lot of it is very youthful energy. So a lot of kids come out. It's a lot of our students as well as breaks are for kids that come out, and some of the adults as well that come out. And it's just nice, you know. It's nice to have a lot of supportive parents that show up. You know, I know sometimes the parents will come out and bring fresh fruit for everybody to snack on right after. You know, so we'll
Nice.
be training, and it's it's a very beautiful energy. It kind of reminds me of when when I saw you in Osaka.
Hmm.
We took a little trip out to Kobe, and I remember
Oh
seeing
yeah.
like there was people like giving out green onions, super random, but giving out free green onions and stuff, and it was just such a it felt like a positive, tight, community based. family oriented energy that I feel like is really progressive. You know,
Hmm.
I know in the origins of this culture, it was a very rough, you know, street culture, but it's beautiful to see the evolution of it that helps really carry on tradition through positive, you know, unity.
Hmm.
So
Um, yeah, I'm kind of curious. Like, do you was there anything that you guys did specifically that kind of fostered this vibe in the community of like parents coming out, and you
yeah,
mentioned like grandmas coming, like
yeah,
intergenerational audiences, right?
yeah, yeah. Uh, I mean, we just started inviting kids out to training. To be
Hmm.
honest, like they were young. A lot of our students were probably like age wise, maybe like 7, 8 years old, and we just started bringing them out. And I think the moment, which was probably the best decision of our lives, was the moment we asked them to just come out and be a part of it, was when everything changed. You know, like kids, we were teaching classes, and it's one thing to show up for an hour class every week opposed to showing up to like 3 or 4 open practices plus class. You know, the more time that you spend on it, and the more intention that you put on it, on your craft or art or sport or whatever you want to call it, the better you get at it. You know, the more time spent on it, the more familiar it becomes. And that was just the evolution of it all, is just involvement, you know, not being afraid to not bring kids into practice because maybe there's some things that shouldn't be happening around us happen, and like just, you know, controlling it, controlling the environment, making sure it's a good energy for kids to be there and train with us, you know. And you see this around the world, like little kids these days throwing crazy things, you know, power moves, so on and so forth, right? Or kids at a young age having such amazing understanding of self, right? Like style. And really the beautiful thing is that it's possible. It's just a matter of when. When do you want that to happen? And when are you willing to involve them within it? So we're just trying to bring our kids a little bit young. The younger and younger they get, it's just like more and more like, come out to this training. We're doing this, and get involved and be around it. You know, it's like when a kid shows up, or when a kid is exposed to music at an early age, you know, they become more familiar, even more so than a kid who's introduced a little bit later, right? Like something
Hmm.
like Perfect Pitch. So
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing. Is you focus on the youth, right? They're the
yeah,
ones. They're the ones that made this culture, right? And they're the ones that are going to continue this culture. And as you get older, a lot of people talk about this too, of like, just keeping that. People have responsibilities and all that kind of thing as you grow up. Things you get a bit more busier and whatnot. But
mm-hmm.
always remembering that sort of youthful energy that everyone kind of has too is really reinvigorating too. And
Yeah,
you know that can like
you know,
yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, you know, it inspires me so much when I meet people like Linsky, Lino, or you know, people like Kenny. Who else? People that are a little bit more older, you know, and have of course paid their dues. But I can speak solely mainly because we see Linsky quite often. You know, from the Floor Lords crew from
Mm-hmm.
Boston, and this guy is like, I want to say 54, or even Skilroy too from Hawaii, who's also probably like 55, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
54, around their mid 50s. But these guys are breaking around us alongside kids who are like 7 years old, 6 years old, and it's the same youthful energy that you say, you know. And it's one of those things where it's like you never lose that inner child within yourself, the play, right, the inner play.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it's beautiful to see, you know, because it's similar energy although different ages,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. It's a in some ways it's like kind of strange, not in a bad way, but it's just weird. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you think about it, like even just during the course of this conversation, like I was thinking about our own crew and like a younger guy in our crew, Michael Sosik.
Mm-hmm.
He's quite a bit younger, like maybe almost like, trying to think here. He's at least like maybe 6 years younger than a lot of us, six
Oh
years or
wow.
something like that. And but like we never really thought about that. It never really came up of like, oh yeah, this guy's like super young, that kind of thing. It was
Yeah.
just kind of like, oh yeah, he's just one of us, and we never really put any attention on like this age
Age.
difference or anything
Mm.
like that.
Hmm.
And it's weird sometimes to think about, yeah, you'll go to an event or you're just chilling, and like there'll be someone who's like still in high school or something, and you're like, you've already graduated, you've had a job for a long time, whatever, you might have a family and that kind of thing, but you don't even think
Yeah.
twice about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maturity, right? Like
Mm.
this craft matures you, and it also keeps you young at the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
time, right? Like
yeah.
I think that's that two-way road that we reciprocate within ourselves, the adults and the youth, is that not only are we a for the adults creating and providing a good direction and outlet for the youth, but at the same time that youthful energy is helping us to maintain humbled and youthful within
Mm.
our expression.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean our students are pretty young also, and it's so interesting. You know, we just actually came back from IBE
Hmm.
yesterday, got back
Oh.
last night, and it was we traveled with our kids, Kaimana Mana Breaks, who's 15, and then you've been served, who's 14. And you know, these kids is they're great, man. It's such an honor to rock with them. They're mature for their age, and I honestly believe that that's what they've digested from us. Like kids are like sponges. I'm sure you've you know that, and it's just so neat, you know, to see how much mature they are, but also how much more that we can learn from them also,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, and like it's come up a lot and in a lot of these talks, but the idea of like mentorship and passing on this knowledge
Hmm.
and stuff. But sometimes I know you teach, but even just your presence and the way that you like hold yourself in public and that kind of thing is like, positive role models. That kind of thing
Yeah.
is super important. Like you said, especially with the younger kids, they're like sponges. They're always watching. They're always learning, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like the younger they are, the more they're gonna do that, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of thing is really important to be conscious of when you're an older generation dancer or just a person within the community and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Kids are watching and they're going to emulate that stuff, and so it's like, how do you want
100%.
how do you want the future to be? You got to be the future that you want them to be, in a way.
100%. It makes me almost really like in the practice for when I do eventually, you know, have my own kid, to know this now and be like, oh, you know, excuse me, be more prepared
Mm.
for it. So
Yeah,
good practice. Good
yeah, for
practice. For
sure.
now, it's being able to learn this and work with kids who aren't mine, which is cool. You know, like they go back home at the end. When I do eventually have my own kid, it's going to be a crazy practice and consciousness of, okay, the good things that I want to instill in the youth. You know, for my own kin at least.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, man,
um
the future is kids.
yeah, yeah. You mentioned you mentioned it kind of briefly, but I thought it was really interesting. But this idea of like the kids getting a good like sense of self and understanding of like their own style and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I say this because when I watched you, you're one of the, in my humble opinion, one of the few people in the dance community, in the breaking scene, and even like because you compete a lot, even in the competitive scene, that really
Mm.
like when you go out there, you can see the kind of like, what do you want to say, like the expression, the
Mm.
the soul, that kind of thing, that unspeakable thing that you it's hard to explain in dance, but
Yeah.
that kind of sense of true style, true expression, that's like Hijack out there dancing,
Mm.
that kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about that idea of like sense of self and and maybe your sense of self?
Yeah. You know, the first thing that came to mind when you brought that up was I remember back in 2015, it was this one event. I believe it was 2015. I spoke to a b-boy named b-boy Choco from Taiwan, and you know, b-boys, dancers, artists, athletes are very self-critical. You know, we have that little person on our shoulder always making things complicated for us, always telling us, you know, what we can always be better at and judging us, right? Criticism. And the one thing that I remember asking him, you know, Choco, what is it that I can do better on? You know, how can I be how can I be better? And the one thing he told me was the moment you stop asking other people and you start looking more inside yourself. And I think after that, when I asked other people, yeah, I took it more as a grain of salt. But then I started really digging more deep inside myself and analyzing, like, why is it that I do what I do, and who is it that I do what I do for?
Hmm.
And you know, to be honest, I don't win a lot of competitions. I'm not known as the guy who wins a lot, but I think what's beautiful is honestly expressing myself. And I reference this back to the binary Star Trek, right? The honestly expressing yourself. And you know, it's a very gratifying feeling when you can just let go of all pressure, all expectations of, oh, you know, I got to do this so that I can win, or I got to make it to the next battle, and not look at that and just go in and honestly express myself. Sometimes it's beautiful and sometimes it's hideous, but it's the balance, right? It's the balance, and it's honest. It's not always going to be the same, and I think people can feel that, right? Like, people can feel when something is genuine, and people can also feel when something has been rehearsed like 27 times in the dance studio down the street, right? So that's my new approach with this, is that even though it may win or it may not win, but to genuinely express myself, feel what I feel, and chances are if I feel and give off a feeling that I can feel, that other people will also feel that same feeling. And another direction and drive for helping me find that sense of self is just the very backbone and origin of what got me into this dance, or got me into dance in general, was the music, right? Like, sometimes it's kind of weird to say, but sometimes I just want to cry when I hear songs that are just so good. And like, I say that because we were at IBE, and it was Lucas Benjamin, DJ Lucci's. I don't know if you remember
Yeah, yeah.
Lucci's, from the Extraordinary Gents. He was playing some music that I have never heard before, and sometimes it just hits, you know. And to dance to that, the beautiful thing is when you can dance to a song you've never heard, but you can dance to it as if you were there with the musician who was playing the song.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the approach for me. It's like, it's not always beautiful, but it's honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's that's something that, in my opinion, is like a very mature take. Like, not in the sense of like, oh, I know so much more, that kind of thing, but just someone who's been in the scene or in the dance, understanding of
Mhm.
the dance is a little more mature. Like, obviously when you start anything, it's like, okay, you got to learn the building blocks, you got to learn
Of course.
these specific moves or these specific techniques and stuff like that. But like you said, as you grow and as you grow within the dance, and start to ask yourself more questions, look internally,
Hmm.
that idea of like expressing, and honest expression becomes
Hmm.
more and more important, and more that's like one of the most difficult things. And like, I think it's
Hmm.
I'm sure many people have said it, but there's that famous quote with Bruce Lee, and he's talking about
Hmm.
true honest expression. That's something that's really like special or difficult. I forget exactly what he says, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the
What
ultimate
was it? It was
sort
like,
of goal or something like that.
it was like to honestly express oneself, not lying to oneself,
Yeah, yeah.
but to honestly express oneself. And that, my friends, is very hard to do, right? Something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like he's talking about
Along those
martial
lines.
arts, right? But you can see how
Hmm.
this same sort of thinking can apply to any of these things that we
Absolute.
do, right?
To breaking, to music,
Hmm.
to pickleball. Oh my God! Like
What is
I can only
pickleball?
imagine. It's like this game that they've been people like a lot of our crew they play it in the States. It's like a man, I don't want to butcher it. I don't want to butcher it because
That's
I'm
okay.
kind of like but
Yeah, yeah,
I mean that could be something that could be applied to anything with a conscious thought about it,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
I guess freedom, but
But you know, the more I kind of just look into things and just study things like outside of dancing, the more I
hmm
realize like, you know what, like a lot of these things are the same thing. They're
yeah,
not like you're the things that you're doing are different, but the sort of like underlying processes, the way that you go about it mentally,
hmm
they're very similar. Like I'm studying
hmm
design stuff, or I read stuff about like psychology or philosophy or whatever, and there's
hmm
like the whole idea of like flow. That was coined by a psychologist, right? And they can explain it in their own way, but a lot of dancers understand that completely. When you get so ingrained, you're so into something that time
mm
disappears. You kind of like your sense of self just disappears, and you're just like a person floating in this sea of people, and everyone's one
mm
kind of thing. This weird feeling.
flow state, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And that kind of thing exists in all these different fields, and it's not just an artistic thing. It's not just like a
hmm
musical thing. It can happen in like science. It can happen in, I'm sure, like someone making a building or something like that. you
Yeah,
know
yeah, like architectural, like yeah.
yeah, or even like
I
simple things like just
hmm
hammering in a nail, but it's like you're so engrossed in that one activity or something like that. You're just hammering a nail,
hmm
hammering a nail, hammering a nail, but it's like depending on your
in the
mind
zone,
state,
right?
and yeah, you just
hmm
get in the zone, right? Yeah.
there's this one book I remember reading a while back, and I would recommend it to anybody watching of getting a little bit of an idea. There was a book that I read that really expressed that flow state really well, and the name of the book is called Free Play, and it's by an author I believe named Stefan Nokovic. It's like a red book, tiny little red book, really easy to read. It was passed down to me from a great friend of mine who goes by the name of Scarecrow. James, really good friend of mine, passed it on to me. And it's been a book that, to be honest, I passed to a lot of my friends that are dancers, non dancers, anybody that seeks that free play or has a taste of that free play flow state of mine, right? Like I passed it to a great mentor of mine. He goes by the name of Larry, and he does like bonsai trimming. He's like an amazing graphic artist, just overall amazing character in life, and pass it to him, and he was just like amazed, and it was beautiful because he himself has experienced something, but to have it be put into words
Hmm.
was just phenomenal. So I highly recommend that book.
Yeah, like that's another thing too that has come up a lot recently with some of these talks is just the idea of like education,
Mm,
getting educated, and that doesn't necessarily mean like you got to go to school and do this and get a degree or whatever, but it just means like looking into stuff deeper, and even if it's just reading a book, and even if it's something that you already kind of like you think right? Like,
mm,
oh yeah, I'm in that
mm,
flow state, I'm in the zone. But like you said, having it put into words and articulated in a certain way can really
mm,
hammer it home and make you understand it on a deeper level. That kind
mm.
of stuff. Yeah.
So true. I
Hmm.
mean, even to dial in too with education, right? Even knowing the name of a song and where the song was originated from and what
Hmm.
culture background it is. Like
Mm.
I say that because I one of my students just showed me the Alif battle with I forgot who it was. It was Alif versus I think that guy from China, X Rain or something like that. But that Mu Africa song came on, and I remember seeing a comment in the comments saying like, this song was from this part of Africa, and a lot of people were like celebrating that comment because it's deeper. For me, I didn't know where it was from. I'm
Hmm.
familiar with the tune. It was the Africa, oh, the Africa.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you'd recognize the
Yeah,
track,
yeah,
but to know the history and shoot, even go as far as education as researching what the words are.
yeah. Hmm.
What is he saying?
Hmm.
And understand the vibe or the direction of purpose with that music. So yeah, education in all forms, right?
Yeah, yeah. It just deepens your understanding of what you're doing and deepens your like appreciation too. It's not even just about like, yeah. Like I
So
always
true.
think back with regards to the like musical aspect, and
Hmm.
understanding the history. Like, a lot of people will go back and they'll learn about the breaking history, but
Mm,
understanding where music comes from can really, really help. And I think back to this, it's like a Poe One interview, and he's just talking
mm.
about some like, I think it was like a James Brown song, but he's just like talking about the lyrics and the historical significance of that, and he just like, it makes you feel the song on a different level, not
Yeah.
just like understanding, but when you hear it, it'll resonate differently with you.
Mm,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, Poll One is amazing, man. Poll
Mm.
One is definitely one of the few that has changed my whole perspective on breaking, on
Mm.
expressing, let's say.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
um yeah, maybe to kind of just transition off of this,
Sure.
like, can you talk a little bit about like when you're dancing, and that connection with the music?
Mm,
And again, I mentioned this too because you're one of the few people that to me really is connected with the music when you're on the dance floor, and you can see it in your dancing. Um,
yeah.
can you talk a little bit about that, and maybe like your approach, that kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I feel like with my approach to dancing on the music, it goes beyond just being there on the dance floor in that moment. I mean, it starts here while I'm in my house listening to music. I'm always listening to music and trying to understand and digest different musical patterns, different drum patterns and rhythms and sounds of instruments. And when I do go into battle, I really try to dissect what I'm hearing and what I want to bring to life, if that makes sense. So, of course, nowadays, dancers, in my opinion, from what I see a lot, is just the simple drum beat that dancers will surf on, or uh, every now and then the obvious beats, we'll call it, right? Like the ones that it's going to come up, you can feel it, it's going to hit 5, 6, 7, 8, right? It's going to hit. But to ride the melody of the song, the tones of the song, the drums, be able to get down on the drums and then get off the drums. And now I'm dancing on the piano keys and then get off the piano keys and bounce to the bass, to use, bring in all sounds. It reminds me a lot like jazz, like when I break my style, I like to think of it as like jazz because there's different solos, right, that come in and out and really tie everything all together. The instruments will show that as well as with the movement. So my approach when I get in, I mean, the easiest term for me to say is I just do. I
Hmm.
listen and I just do and I bring it to life. The more complicated version, I try to dissect different sounds that I hear, different melodies that I hear. If there's like a sound that sounds really high pitched, I'll adapt my movement to be a little bit more higher. If I hear something that's a little bit lower, then of course, I adapt to that and I'll go lower, move lower tones or shapes or different heights, I guess. Um, but yeah, just overall trying to, not trying, but just being what I hear,
Hmm.
just being what I hear.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
it's a tricky thing to articulate, like you said, the simple version is I just do it, or I be, like that kind of thing. And like
Yeah.
it's kind of funny because I think a lot of people won't understand that if they don't actually do it and try and like do the
Yeah.
craft.
Yeah.
Um, and like it's a hard thing too, because coming it's kind of coming back to that flow state sort of thing, and just a lot of things, not even just flow state, but a lot of things you can come back to, like meditation and whatever. It's like
Mm.
the moment you, it's even coming back to this, I forget what it was, it's like Charles Bukowski or whatever, and it was something that he
Mm.
mentioned, like it's like when you're trying like so hard to do something, you're never gonna get it because like you're so fixated on it. You're not able to just
Mm.
kind of like be and see all the maybe connections of other things happening because you're so like tunnel visioned on this one thing.
Hmm. There's so much energy on trying to
Yeah,
be.
yeah. Like, yeah, so if you're, say, meditating and you're like, okay, I've got to clear my mind, and you're like telling yourself to do this, but you're not, because you're doing that, your mind is like still active and it's not relaxing into that state where you can actually get into this flow state.
I honestly feel like, muscle memory is a big key. You cannot free play or attain that flow state if you still are not comfortable with craft, right? And this comes with repetition. So it is a combination of drilling your movements and drilling your concepts to the point where you can effortlessly step away and let what needs to do be done physically, while mentally, let's say mentally and spiritually, because music, of course, taps into the soul, and mentally, to learn how to let go, it is the perfect combination of all three, mind, body, and soul. And I think that that's something that needs to be worked on or practiced to attain this flow state, right? In my opinion.
Hmm.
So muscle memory is big. I mean, when I'm at practice, I'm training like a robot. I'm just doing my ideas over and over again to the point where I can do it without really thinking about it. And then when I go to competitions, or I'll have certain designated practices where I can just be free, let go, listen to the music, and bring it to life.
Hmm.
So that's one
Yeah.
of the things that I definitely feel like would help for anybody who wants to attain or find that flow state or freedom is, one, be conscious of the music, listen to music, love music, all types of genres, jazz, blues, um, rock,
Mm.
folk, bossa nova, anything. Listen to music and just digest what you hear, and get used to different sounds. And it truly is amazing to me because a lot of sounds will influence your moves. They'll
Mm.
influence the movements, and they'll put you in an area of creation. It's such a beautiful, humbling space,
Yeah.
the gray area, or
Yeah.
or in this sense, I guess the colorful area, because it just brings so much, emotion to
Hmm.
what we do. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. Just because I, again, like the deeper you get into something, the more quote unquote like maturity you have within something, the more you
Hmm.
can do something like what you said, like not just listen to a song. And this reminds me of like I think it was Skim Richards who mentioned it. He's talking about like
Mm.
listening to us when Why Not's on the floor. He doesn't just listen to a song. He listens, and he like
Mm.
emphasizes listens. There's a difference between like just listening, passively listening, and actively listening. Like you said, when you listen to stuff, maybe you're not even necessarily trying it, but it's just because you've surrounded yourself with music and you're so like immersed in it that
Mm.
you naturally just start to pick things out. And, oh, that's a cool little bass line there, or this is a cool,
Hmm.
you hit a hi-hat there, this kind of stuff,
Spot on.
that kind
Hmm.
of thing. And I think that's something that, like you said, people who are maybe looking to like improve on this or something, that's something you can do, is immerse yourself. That's my thing, my little contribution here. If you want to learn
Hmm.
anything,
Hmm.
is immerse yourself in it. That's the best thing you can do, whatever it is that you're learning. But yeah, like active listening, passive listening versus active listening,
Mm,
passively watching something versus actively watching it. You can just watch a battle.
mm,
But if you watch and you're looking at, well, why did this person win? You ask yourself those questions. Like you mentioned before, when you started
mm-hmm,
asking yourself these questions, why am I doing this? What am I doing? This kind of
mm-hmm,
stuff. And you can do that. You can ask those same questions about whatever you're watching, whatever you're listening to. Yeah.
mm-hmm. It becomes more deliberate, right? Like I feel
Mm.
like that's where the real growth becomes when you start asking yourself those questions and you start analyzing even more, opposed to, like you said, just going and doing and going home and then repeating the process, right? Repeating the same process without any reference to change or analyzing and questioning, and I feel like that's where the real growth is where you can ask yourself and digest and spot what's working and not working, right? Like always finding opportunity through obstacles.
Yeah.
And you spot on, Dean. You hit it on the right on.
Well, no, like it's just fun having this conversation with you because I know like you brought up that book that you read, but you're someone that I think has this, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but has this like natural curiosity and stuff, and we'll look into things, right? You're curious about the dance, you're curious
Absolutely.
about whatever the mentality, and you'll look into it. I remember you were reading this book called Drive, I think, and it's about motivation and stuff
Yeah.
like that. You actually made, because you shared something on that. I was like, oh, this looks interesting, and I picked it up, and it's a great book too.
Mm,
Yeah, but
really,
yeah.
really interesting. Yeah, really interesting to I mean, for a book like that, there was a phase I started reading a bunch of like, I guess, self transformation books, and that helped me with that was you cannot wait for motivation.
Mm,
You can't wait for something to drive you. You have to create it yourself, and the motivation will come later. And I think that's such a beautiful thing because, I mean, now, even when I feel least motivated, right, that feeling, I just go. Like, if I don't feel like going to practice, I just don't even reason with myself and I just go.
mm-hmm,
And then, you know what? The beautiful thing is being able to leave whatever practice or craft that you do, to be able to leave it feeling more energized than you were approaching it.
mm-hmm.
And I think that's really the release for me, you know?
Yeah.
Not escaping. I'm not escaping anything, but to find freedom and expression and creation
Mm-hmm.
from it. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I think, yeah, the next thing that I'm kind of curious to ask about, because you've had these really great answers, in my opinion, or just insight
appreciate
on
it.
things.
I
Um,
hope I wasn't going off on a tangent too
no,
much.
no, no. Well, if you were, then I like those kind of things, and maybe I do that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of curious on your perspective of just. I know you travel a lot. You just mentioned you
Mm,
came back from IBE recently, and
yeah.
even just finding time to lock down this little chat is tough because you're like, oh, I'm going to Boston here, I'm going here, I'm going here.
Yeah. It's been
So
long overdue. Sorry,
yeah,
dude.
no, 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 no. But you like travel a lot, and even mentioning like you took some of your students
Yeah.
to IBE, and
Hmm.
can you talk a little bit about just maybe the importance of traveling and getting out there and stuff?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm an honest believer with you, you know, you grow with your environment, right? I'm sure there's even more I'm sure there's even more of a scientific study with, you know, with traveling you digest not only just the environment but the magnitude, I guess, that's around, you know, just that energy that you are around. And I remember I say that because I remember hearing something. It might be super off topic, but I remember talking to Flowmaster about how do you beat jet lag, and he was telling me that to beat jet lag, or a tip that he would recommend would be to go barefoot on grass wherever you are for about 20 plus minutes, and that will help you to naturally, I guess, the earth gives off some kind of, you know, energy that helps you reset, you know. it could sound crazy. I should probably do a little bit more research, but just to have that be, instilled in my mind got me thinking like, anywhere that I travel, I feel like I've always leveled up. And I don't know if it was just a mental thing. It could be a mental thing, but just to digest the energy of where I am, whether it be the people I'm around, the food that I'm consuming, the the views that I'm seeing, the sounds that I'm hearing, all senses engaged. I feel like that just helps me to mature and become a better human being, which then later translates to a better dancer, right?
Hmm.
So super important, and I highly recommend to anybody that wants to progress in anything that they do. Like you're saying, really fully invest yourself. If you want to get good at something, you fully invest yourself in it. And traveling and seeing in what we do, traveling to different communities is is life changing.
Hmm.
I mean, at first, I used to think of it as like to leave your hometown and see that you're not the biggest fish in the pond anymore. See the level of how amazing it is out there and be able to know that level, come back and train to then either be at that same level or go beyond that level. I think that's what it was at first, but now it's just to share and exchange with like-minded people like you. When we went out to Osaka to be able to see you again for the first time in like years in Seattle, and
Hmm.
just to connect and rebuild friendships. And I think that's what it is for me. Like breaking is what I do, and maybe I hold that solely to myself, but to be able to travel and meet like-minded people or reconnect with friends, I think that's the big part of this chapter in life that
Hmm.
I have. So yeah, super important. And I was really excited to bring our kids with us. I mean, it's proof. The proof is in the pudding. The moment we brought our kids out to Vegas for their first out of state jam, they got to see the level out there. There was kids known as Alchemy Breaking Crew. There was Battleborn crew. There was a few other kids crews, and for them to see that level, like Zoologic kids, they were able to see that level, come back, and they've just like leveled up hard. They're moving different. Their
Hmm.
goals are a little bit more driven,
Hmm.
and yeah, I think it's a part of the experience,
Yeah.
right? You travel somewhere, you learn, you level up, you grow, you eat good food, you listen to good music, and you just overall enjoy the
Hmm.
culture a little bit more. So, and
Yeah.
every culture has different things to offer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's kind of just makes me think about like, I don't know, maybe this is like a human thing in all of us, is to leave your
mm,
leave your, I don't know, whatever, your hometown or your
mm-hmm,
safe, comfortable environment and go out into it, find adventure kind of thing. Like there's
mm-hmm,
I haven't read it yet. I really want to, but there's a book called A Hero of a Thousand Faces or something like that,
mm,
and it's kind of like, I think it's like an analysis of all these different sort of like folklore, like mythologies and stuff, and how they all
mm-hmm,
follow a very similar structure of this like call to adventure and go out and face some I don't know, difficult mythical being or something like that. And there's like a
mm,
whole sequence that you see it throughout time and cross culturally. It appears everywhere,
whoa,
and even I think like the original Star Wars was based on that book in part.
no way, that's crazy. I definitely got to check that out. That sounds
Yeah, it's like a a, a story like cycle that so many different stories from like the Odyssey with Ulysses and that kind of thing, all
hmm.
the way to like modern stuff that's happening now. It's like,
Wow.
yeah. So it makes me think that, that kind of thing is something that's like in us, in humans, to like get out there and adventure in
Mm,
some way. Like everyone will face it,
hmm,
might not even necessarily be like I gotta travel, that kind of thing, but it
hmm,
might be like, just facing that thing that you were like, oh, I'm kind of weary about this thing. I don't know if I should do
mm,
that, but like at some point you feel that call for adventure and you go into it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that itch,
yeah, yeah.
that itch of curiosity and unknown, right? The unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that such a, it's such a crazy thing to think that when you speak, how do I say this? Like every time that I've ever gone into a phase of like, the unknown, whether it be learning a new move or traveling to another place that I've never been before, that unknown feeling, it's scary,
Mm-hmm.
but if you learn how to control it and direct it, it normally turns out to be normally, because it could go really wrong, but normally it's like such a normally the best thing to do, right? Like a big progression in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
like when you can see something that you're itchy and you're curious for it and you want to do it but you're afraid, but then you do it anyway, and then you just grow from that experience. It's like
Mm-hmm.
once you know that, then you kind of just start to not fear
Yeah,
too much anymore, right?
yeah,
And then you start to just take these risks
yeah,
with caution.
yeah,
So yeah, it's
yeah.
just
That
a
I
little tangent I want to go off of
no
because
no, but
I've started to notice that, like things that I've feared but approached anyway, and when nothing good came out of it, to apply that as a concept to not be afraid anymore,
mm-hmm.
but to continuously approach these things of of what is it, of like curiosity.
Yeah. Well, that was
Yeah.
another one thing, that interesting thing that I heard was like about like fears and stuff and how you overcome them. It's like you don't
Mm,
stop being afraid of that thing. You just become
hmm.
more
Comfortable.
brave. Like you're ready to
Mm,
face it. You're still
hmm.
afraid maybe, but you're just more ready to face it and more, I guess, comfortable with that situation. But like you said, like,
Yeah.
I think when you're talking about like unknowns and stuff, it's it's learning to like control yourself and learning to like adapt to that thing that's maybe different or strange or new or that kind of thing, like
Hmm.
you know, traveling to another country or like, the thing that popped into my head is kind of weird, but
Hmm.
I really like fighting games like Street Fighter and stuff like that.
Oh
And
shit.
like I know like there's a lot of people who play those games that maybe there's a lot of people that are like interested in them, but you know, the idea of like playing someone else is kind of intimidating and that kind of thing. And maybe it's the same thing with breaking too, with like competitions and stuff. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like when I play someone online or just someone random, like I remember I was playing in the arcade one time, and like I was playing the computer, and then someone challenged me, and I got this like feeling in my chest, like, and I was like literally, I don't know why, it was so weird. I was like kind of like shaking because it was like so exciting, but like, you know, not scary, but a little bit scary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like intimidating or whatever. But as you go through it, it's like this is the thing that I love about fighting games, and like you can, I'm sure this happens with a lot of things, even with breaking too. Is like as it's happening, once I learn to calm down and start to
Mm,
like process what's going on, it's that in the moment feeling of, okay, what is this person doing, and how can I adapt to what they're doing? What are the patterns that they're doing?
mm,
And sometimes you lose, right?
hmm.
And when you lose, if you're kind of conscious of it, you can look at, well, what did they do, how did they beat me, that kind of thing, and then you go back and
Hmm.
you lab it or something like that, or
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
realize like, oh, I lost because when I hit them, I didn't have any combos to do any damage or whatever. So then you go and lab
Yeah.
that. You're like, I need to learn this, right? That was kind of a random tangent, but
No. No.
main point was that idea of like throwing yourself into those uncomfortable situations and learn, and the
Yeah.
kind of things that you learn from them once you learn to kind
Yeah.
of like settle and calm down. Yeah.
I agree, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because I feel like I've learned more from my losses
Yeah.
than I have from my wins.
Yeah.
Like you said, every time I've lost, I've always gone back and just analyzed,
Mm.
searched within myself as like why, and in my own perspective, what could I have done better, right? Like so, I definitely, I'm glad you brought that up because that is super important, and I hope people who watch this know that like we do learn a lot from our losses. We learn from our wins also, but I feel like even more so,
You learn
you know.
way more from mistakes and
hmm
and losses and
And it's
things like that.
humbling, and
Yeah.
it's very humbling.
Yeah.
It is because in a game like this, like breaking, every dog has his day,
Mm-hmm.
and there's enough for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's enough for everyone. And I do got to say this on a side note: Street Fighter Third Strike, hands down, best music,
Yo,
best music. That's the game, dude.
that's the
Street Fighter
best
Third
soundtrack.
Strike,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
best soundtrack, hip hop. It was a hip
Yeah.
hop soundtrack.
Yeah. Yeah. For anyone who has never heard it, go and check it out. That's also my
Oh
favorite Street
man,
Fighter game. Yeah.
dude,
The character design, the vibe of the game is like, yeah, it's incredible.
bro,
Um,
so dope.
but on
Who's
that
your
note,
character?
who's my character? In that game, yo, I have this weird thing that I've realized. It's kind of funny because I noticed it through dance and I noticed it through like just everything that I do. I tend to gravitate to the thing that like that's not the popular thing.
Of
That's kind
course.
of like, and in fighting games you have like high tier characters and low tier characters, and I tend to gravitate to like the mid to low tier characters. And in like
Okay.
breaking, in breaking, it's like the stuff that I liked is not necessarily the kind of like popular stuff or the popular style, or it's not the kind of things that will typically like win a competition or be noticed by
Mm,
people and get like this big reaction and stuff. So anyway,
mm.
long story short, my favorite character in Third Strike is 12. He's like the shape shifting guy, but he sucks.
Yeah.
He's terrible. He's so bad. He's like one of the worst characters.
Yo.
But like that's
But
the
his
thing.
soundtrack is fire. The
Yeah.
Snowland.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yo, it's it's the idea of like you said earlier, you're not known as the guy that always wins these things, but sometimes
Mm,
through even though you lost, you won, that kind of thing. And so it's like, playing a character like that, even though I might lose, if I took it to someone and I almost beat them or whatever, and they're using this character and they're
high tier.
high tier or whatever, and I almost beat them with the worst character, that's almost like I won in a sense, right? And if
Dude.
I do win, it's like, man, it feels really good to me. Yeah.
Because it's pretty much like a handicap.
Yeah,
You handicapped
totally,
yourself,
totally,
right?
totally. But that's
That's
not why I do
crazy.
it, right? It's like it's just fun. It's enjoyable to do that. Yeah.
Damn.
But yeah,
12 does suck.
yeah, 12. I like Necro too. He's kind of like a
Necro
Dalsum,
too.
whatever.
Yep.
And the other guy that I really like, and he's like a decent character, is Yang, one of the twins.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. He's the one with the cap.
The other one with the
Or that
like
or the
the
other one
shovel
with the
hair.
bangs. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yo,
yeah.
I love that game. To
But that game I
like
played like every character to some decent extent. I also like Dudley.
Dudley's dope too with the
Yeah,
little rose throw.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I mean, even finding inspiration from games like that too,
Yeah, man.
you know? Like it's everywhere.
Hmm.
It's just you gotta just look, and it's cool to find inspiration from those things
Hmm.
and implement it within your craft.
Hmm.
And for those who understand, then it hits, like
Yeah, yeah.
to do a Dudley Rose throw in battle and then
Hmm.
have someone be like, yo, you did a Dudley Rose throw, like something like that,
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
that connection is so cool, man.
Yeah,
Inspiration really is free.
yeah, for sure.
Inspiration really is everywhere. It's
Yeah,
just it's up to you to
hmm,
use it.
yeah. Well, I think that's a good spot to maybe finish for now.
Yes, sir.
Um, really good chatting and just catching up and stuff, and just hearing your thoughts on stuff. You're really one of the, I don't know, one of the few people that can articulate stuff well, or as a deep thinker. Not everyone's kind of thinking, but sometimes it's really hard
Yeah.
to express these things in words.
It's
And
deep.
yeah, and I really appreciate being able to kind of talked with you on these things on this deeper level. This is the kind of stuff that I really like, you know. So going, you know, below
Yeah,
the surface kind of stuff. So I really
absolutely,
appreciate it.
man. I appreciate you for having me, and huge
Yeah.
shout out to Beyond the Dance Floor for just having me on this. I know it's been a long time overdue, and to be honest, I always appreciate being able to sit and talk, especially with you, and to just put things into perspective. You know,
Hmm.
I hope that this was able to reach, you know, at least reach out and touch to someone who's looking for it. If not, I mean, it was just a great time chatting it up. So I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And Beyond the Dance Floor.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Hijack, for taking the time. Thanks everybody for listening and watching. Really appreciate it. Always appreciate it. And you know, hopefully, some of these people that are listening and watching, they can connect with us sometime down the road at some jam, and we'll share a circle. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll
All
see
right.
you soon too, hopefully.
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah, we'll do
Maybe
it.
next year. So
Maybe. Yeah.
until then, stay
Hmm.
safe, stay healthy, and thank you so much again for having me, Dean. Really
Hmm.
appreciate you, brother.
Yeah. No worries.
Stay filthy.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for everything, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Yes, sir.